I didn't really have an intro set in my mind yet, so I don't even know how we're going to start this episode. Since it's just going to be about drinking, but I might as well just start off with a bang. Do you want to do the intro this time, or shall I just go do the usual?
No, just do your thing. I don't know. You can't put me on the spot like that. I gotta write a script.
Oh no! In this podcast, we go pretty freeform.
What's up? Like Alcohol's Anonymous.
Welcome to the meeting.
Yeah.
I see you're here for your own reasons.
Today we're going to be talking about how we hurt people in the past and how to forgive ourselves.
How we put this liquid drug in our veins and we just do unthinkable things. And with that being said, I might as well start this off with the thing that should be in the audio. Welcome to Kanpai Chronicles. Konnichiwa, yokoso. Yotta iru hito mo yokoso. We are, a bunch of previously wild people back when we were living in Tokyo, but this time we want to reminisce on that times when we were drinking way more alcohol than we are now. But in this lovely episode of Kanpai Chronicles, we have your lovely hosts, myself, Norman, and
me, Holly.
Yes. And we want to talk about drinking. And it sounds pretty funny. Our favorite pastime. There's no way we're not going to talk about this because, other than the fact that...
Yeah, it's just ingrained in the culture. Which was a surprise. That was a culture shock for me. I wasn't quite aware how ingrained to almost literally everything alcohol is in Japan.
Yeah, it's like they don't tell us about that, right? There's a lot of anime or manga or whatever it is that would tell you about, bars or izakaya and all of that, which we'll definitely talk more about later on in the episode. But we've always looked at Japan, at least from the outside, as this pristine, tranquil place where you have the sakura and you have very nice, kind people and everyone's very polite and everything is clean. But then you go to Roppongi at 11 p.m. and oh my God, it's trash city right there. No, not that I'm insulting Roppongi in any way. I like the place, but it speaks to this culture of drinking or this relationship with alcohol that we have firsthand experience in Japan. And I really just want to explore that. With that being said, why don't we start this off with it's a very simple question. Do you have a favorite alcohol from Japan? What's your favorite drink to drink back when you were living there?
Jeez. I'm a cheap person. So I wouldn't say that things are my favorite. I know what I drink the most of. If we were just drinking out and about, not in an establishment, I would get because alcohol is super cheap in Japan. I could not believe I could get a fifth for $5, a fifth of vodka, gin, whatever for the equivalent of $5 USD, and this didn't help things. But if I was drinking just out and about, usually I would just buy a fifth of gin or a strong zero, because that just gets the job done. Or they would have random stuff, we were talking last time about how they do seasonal things. So if they came out in the spring with some sakura drink, I would try those little things. Usually the alcohol in those ones are a pretty low percent, 3, 2, 3. So it's more just a casual hanging out, I'm gonna try this sort of thing. But gin and strong zero were probably the most. And then if I was going out, going to bars and clubs and things like that, it was whatever people would buy for me, or a lot of Red Bull vodka that year, a disgusting amount. just because like if you go out in Japan, like you have to stay out. Like the trains stop at a certain time. So if you go out to like the club and you're far from home, you're staying in the club like until 5, 6 a.m. So that was probably, and I liked them. This is probably not good for my like mental health, but a lot of Red Bull vodka that year. What about you? Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? I mean, if you describe me as a cheap person, I probably say the same. I would call myself more of a very resourceful person because
that's a nice way to put it.
I'm just trying to be nicer to myself, I guess. Helps a lot. But
good practice, yeah.
It doesn't help. We're talking about fucking alcohol here. But anyway,
yeah.
I would say I wanted the most like what's the phrase for it? My English is so bad these days. What, bang for my buck?
Bang for your buck. Yeah,
bang for my buck. First of all, what the fuck does that mean? Anyway, right? Like anyway, the most value out of each and every yen that I put into my drinking habits at the time. So my favorite to buy is actually from, and I don't know if this is a known secret. Well, if it's posted out here, I guess it's not a secret anymore. But I like to buy my alcohol from like electronic stores, like electronics departments.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, the fourth floor of every electronics department, and I forgot the name of the store or the department branch thing that I always go to. It's actually nearby the UD. Is every fourth floor there's an alcohol section, and the bottles are so cheap. And we're not talking about like, oh, a can or like, oh, a tiny shot. No. We're talking about a full like 700 milliliter bottle. And I bought an absolute vodka bottle at like 700 milliliters for 1,400 yen or 1,500 yen. So if you convert that, that's like $15, 15 Aussie dollars for me. I don't know how much that is for USD. But basically it's less than $20. First of all,
right,
it is dangerous having a whole bottle of vodka at that cheap a price.
Right.
But that means that it was just so popular. Like people would go to bars and they would drink, but then there was a lot of pre-drinking done, or like the pre-game where I would literally go to an electronics store to buy vodka. Like people are like buying phones or like, you know, the new Nintendo Switch or something like that. And I'm like, this like suspicious ass brown bag.
Alcoholism at its finest. Like, go to the electronics store for the cheapest.
Yeah, and I would also do my lovely personal concoction. I think I've actually said that in a previous episode. But just as a quick refresher, it's basically a Monster can or an energy drink, and a small Midori bottle and a small Grey Goose vodka bottle, like a really tiny shot size. And what I do is that I would drink half the can, and then I would fill it up with Midori and vodka, and then I'll drink the whole thing after. So that's one entire can, one shot, and one shot of Midori and vodka. So if I time that, the length of time it takes for me to absorb all of it and for me to feel the buzz is like 8 minutes. So I will try to time it so that I can drink it.
What the fuck, Norman? You had it like down to a science.
You got, when you want to save money, you got to be very calculated with like your strategy, right? There's a strategy.
I feel like that's like another level, like timing yourself. Like, all right, how long is it going to take? Train ride's about 30 minutes. How much do I have to drink on this train ride to be lit by the time I get to the club?
But the thing is, right, it also speaks to just how much I was out drinking, because the reason why I started worrying about how long it takes is because I took the same train rides to go to the same few places so often that I just had it in my head. Oh, it just takes around like, I don't know, 15 minutes to get to Shibuya from Ikebukuro or something like that. Or from Ikebukuro to Roppongi, it's like maybe a little bit longer because you have to change lines. So, you know, you don't crack open the can until like halfway through or something like that, you know? So it's just like a conscious decision, like, oh, okay, right, I should drink around this much. But it speaks to like acquiring alcohol in general, because the fact that I could go to an electronics store and buy a whole bottle to either drink at home or bring it somewhere or hide it under a safety cone so that I can continue drinking later. It just made it so convenient. I mean, it's not really the most ethical way
of like acquiring. Did you ever get carded when you were in Japan?
For purchasing alcohol?
Yeah.
No, not at all. I think I've made it abundantly clear that I was a foreign adult, and people didn't really want to check if I was 20 years of age or younger. Oh, yes, that's another thing. Drinking age is 20 and over, not 18 in most places. So, yes. Actually, that was a culture shock for me. I don't know for you. It actually was for me, because it meant that not everyone who immediately goes into uni can drink. So yeah, it was just a bit strange for me, actually.
The legal drinking age in the States is 21. So, I mean, it didn't matter for me. Like, I was already like of drinking age, but I know for my friends that were like coming to Japan that were younger, they were like, fuck yeah, like I can drink. But then it didn't matter, because typically like no one cards you. Like if you're just buying alcohol at the store, or even if you go to like an izakaya, like it can happen, but I don't think, unless you're like going to a club and they're like checking, your ID before they let you in, I don't think I was ever like carded for just purchasing my own alcohol.
But like in the US, they pretty much don't care it unless you go into an establishment. Like that's, I've always thought that was the norm for me, because that's how it was for me back, like either in Malaysia or Australia.
It's like, like obviously like teenagers drink in the States. Like people don't.
Yeah.
Or like young, like people drink before they're 21. But it's very strict at like stores or bars and things like that.
Right.
Occasionally you'll have like a more seedy place that like doesn't care, and they'll kind of like turn a blind eye to it. Yeah. But for the most part, like if you go out to buy alcohol, you're gonna get carded. And there's all kinds of ways around that. Like it's not hard. It's not hard to get your hands on alcohol. So, but people care. Like people in America, they're like really freaking convinced, because there's debate here that the drinking age should be 18, because that's when like people can go to war. So it's like, if you're going to send them off to war, why can't they drink alcohol, sort of thing. But that's been a debate for, I feel like, since I was like in elementary school, and that hasn't changed. So
wait, you're up to date on on political discussions on legal drinking age from elementary school?
I was ready. No, I don't think it was something that I was like consciously like thinking about, but you hear the conversations like going around, and then like 9/11 happened when I was in 4th grade, I think. So politics in general, just everyone, like no matter where you were, they were talking about everything about the country. So
you were on the front lines fighting for your rights to drink in 4th grade. Like
I was like, the time is now. Like rough home life. Give me some vodka.
It's just like you're like, even before puberty or anything, you're just like, fucking hate life. Fucking. All right, just to clarify, in Australia they are very strict with it. They do card you, no matter your age, unless you are obviously older. It's not like you're gonna be a 45-year-old man with a white beard and the family with your family in tow, and they're gonna card you for purchasing something. But I mean, the last time I went to Australia, and this was just like 2-3 years ago, I was still getting carded at a club. It makes sense, sure, like just for security's sake. But like at a bar or in Australian terms, we say a bottle-o, we you get carded no matter what. I guess it's just because you just have to be that strict, or the process is still there. But in Malaysia, it's not as, it's a little bit more lenient. Like I think I started drinking from when I was like 14 or something. Like I tasted vodka the first time. my dad, not to put him down in his image in any way, thought of it as this rite of passage for becoming an adult. I think it was like in New Year's or something like that, and he gave me this like, I forgot what's the name. I think it's either a black label or like some kind of like special vodka or something. And he was already drunk, so he had this like flushed face and his eyes weren't really open, and he had this cup and he just gave it to me. And I was 14, and I was like, Dad, are you okay? And he's holding his cup and he's giving it to me like, nah, drink. I'm like, okay. And I drank it and it tasted like shit. And I was like, I'm never going to drink ever because that was such a bad experience. Oh, who knew? 10 years later, all of a sudden, I'm like, I really want to drink.
Yeah, I think for me, my first like experiences with alcohol was like really young because when I was really little, I got to spend more time with like the like Italian side of the family. And so for like New Year's or stuff like that, we could have like a little sip of like champagne or wine. Like we didn't get like our own drink, but we could have like a tiny little like sip like to celebrate.
Kid size.
And then I remember, and this might have been, no, I feel like it was legit. I don't know how old I was. Somewhere between like 4th and 6th grade, probably, like somewhere in that time frame. I was staying the night at a friend's house, and her mom was like wild, and we had been talking about like alcohol and how we wanted to like try it because like I was around a lot of adults that were just, drunk a lot. And so I thought it looked cool as a kid. And so she made us like she called them bitches, which I've never looked up if that's like a real drink, but basically it was like Kahlua and chocolate milk. And she let us like drink that. But I'm sure there was probably only like a tiny like splash of alcohol in it. But I remember feeling like super cool about it. Like, yeah, I'm drinking alcohol. And then I went through like middle school, like alcohol is bad. And then I turned like 14 or 15 and I was like, I hate myself and I want to start drinking. And then I started drinking pretty young.
Yeah.
I feel like that's typical in America. I feel like 14, 15 is around when a lot of kids start like experimenting with like drugs and alcohol and going to parties and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds about right for me as well. Like at least curious about it, right? Like at least curious. Yeah. There wasn't really that much of an influence for, at least from what I've noticed or what I've observed in high school in Japan. The few times that I've visited Japanese high schools, there wasn't really that sort of yabai vibe, unless I've been going to the wrong high schools. In any case, that could have been a possibility. But a lot of the high schools that I went to, people were pretty, what's the word for it in English? Diligent with like studying or, trying to get to the right uni, etc. There was a lot of like collective learning, and the harmony is in trying to get the best results for your exams. And, you go to cram school, etc., whatever. There wasn't really people curious about going full on, let's try drugs or alcohol or anything. It's just a lot stricter that way. And then you go to,
you would never know though.
Yeah,
like
true.
In Japanese society, people are so good at living a double life, like so good. Like you would never guess. Like I feel like in a lot of other cultures, it's almost like you brag about these like shady things that you do. But in Japan, it's like you'll have like the straight A, like perfect student gets into like the best university, like whatever. And they could be like, I don't know, in the mob or something, like on the side. Like you just like you can never tell. You absolutely just cannot.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah. Like it will take a while for someone to warm up and be like, actually I've been doing this the whole time. Or actually I had these thoughts, right? Like even just sharing thoughts is like a really big one already.
Yeah.
I've also just found the electronics store that I've been getting alcohol from. It's called Big Camera. Then oh my god.
Oh yeah. They do have it's like all coming back.
Yeah. Like red and white sign. Big Camera.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that store. So shout out to Big Camera.
They had like giant bottles, like scary sized bottles of alcohol that you could get for pretty cheap. Oh my god, I'm like picturing it all.
Yeah, because I was trying to find like I'm on Google Maps and I'm trying to like map out the route from the station to uni, and then I remember there was a Big Camera like right nearby the park where you know sometimes we'd be like hanging out or whatever, and I would get a lot of alcohol from there because a lot of pregame is done at that park or like nearby there, and then we meet up and then go somewhere else. So you know, but like the double life thing, it's big because it's, if you scale that out to people in the city, it's tranquil during the day, and then all of a sudden as soon as it's like 6 p.m. The hub is open, everyone's going to convenience stores to buy like Acerora or Strong Zero, and then Shibuya lights up at night, Roppongi lights up at night, Shinjuku lights up at night, and all the crazy stuff that's happening. It's really interesting seeing that duality and living there, because you can start to have like, it is actually perfectly fine for you to have two sides to yourself. One where you're just like, oh, doing whatever you want. One is when you're doing what needs to be done during the day, and then at night no one will bat an eye at whatever you do, or no one will care about you, so you can go like absolutely crazy going anywhere you want. And I think a lot of Japanese people who enjoy that duality notice that barrier, like that border, so they are really, really good at hiding that. And I think that's like it's like a mystery that is just so fun to solve, because a lot of things happen at night. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I remember, because like one of my favorite books is After Dark by like Murakami.
Yeah,
and I've read it like several times, and the first time I had read it, I had never been to Japan or anything before, and so it seemed so like out of pocket. And then I remember reading it again, I think while I was in Japan. I reread it, and I was like, oh fuck, this isn't whimsical. Like this is how it is. Like there's just so much going on.
This isn't fiction.
Yeah. Wait.
This is just a Facebook post.
Yeah, right.
He was just fucked up on a Saturday night.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, like when we talked about making this episode, we were talking about like nomikai.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that the other day, just like the differences and in the social settings of how we use like alcohol. Because to hear about like nomikai, like when they're telling us about like this kind of stuff, preparing us to like go abroad or whatever, they were like, oh, like clubs, they'll sometimes go out and like they'll take you to a bar or whatever, and you'll just have a couple drinks and get to know each other.
Wait, they teach you this at your uni?
They don't. It's not like. Okay, it was more like friends that had already been to Japan.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like part of class or orientation.
No. The like teachers, the teachers would kind of like word it in I think we talked about this before. The teachers would kind of like word it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But they can't be like too explicit like about it, because in America you can get in trouble for that as a professional. But like some older people be like, yeah, you'll go out and like you'll get drunk and stuff. But even when they're like talking about it, you can't really picture it, because here when you're using alcohol more in a like organized social setting, like if a club were to go out and like go to a bar, it's like you'd probably have like one or two drinks to kind of like loosen up and get to know people, but it would still be kind of like professional, I guess. Like you'd still want to like keep your wits about you. So I kind of expected that, like, oh, if I'm like going to like nomikai with like school people or whatever, like it's just gonna be like that. When really it's like all you can drink, like get wasted, and everybody's like a mess by the end of the night. And I was like, oh, okay. Because then I guess it's like more okay, like in Japanese society for them to be themselves, which is kind of sad, but interesting like to experience.
Yeah, it is. It is. So a quick explanation for our listeners. Nomikai consists of two main Japanese characters, or two kanji. Nomi, or nomi, is to drink, and kai is to meet, to gather, to, what's the word for it? Propagate, or like to gather, basically. To meet up, basically. So when you put nomikai together, it's just a gathering for drinks. There are many different kinds, and I think the common type that I'm not sure for you, but at least for me, that I've experienced is the nomikais that are related to clubs or societies in uni. So in the very beginning, for myself, in spring semester, you'd have orientation, and this is when a lot of bukatsu, or clubs, or sakura, or circles, are basically clubs, like university clubs, or groups. They would try to recruit people to come in and join their group. And part of this is their nomikais, or their drinking meets, where you gather together, you get to know the people in the group, and then you drink, right? It's just a pretty simple thing. So as a student who came in during spring semester, which is basically when you get the chance to see this happening, because in April, everyone's coming into uni for the very first time. So a lot of circles are out there trying to gather as many people as possible. So all these nomikais are out there, like, available for you to join, especially as an exchange student, but mainly for any university student, especially with your first year. There's a lot of that happening. And I've been to a few baseball circle nomikais, and it was pretty fun. They don't do baseball, just so you know. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but let's just say that they're a baseball circle that does not do baseball. And it was pretty evident from that nomikai, because people, it was more like people wanted to find a place to belong. So the nomikai is a way for you to loosen up in an environment where it's okay to loosen up, and then get to know the people who you think you might have a connection with, or like who you think you might resonate with. Because you're most likely going to be in this group for the next 3-4 years, which is your entirety of your university life. So you want to have the group wants to have a really good impression during that nomikai, so that they can, you can register, and you want to find a place that you belong. So nomikais are actually very, very encouraged. Like it's like a glass of beer is an excuse to be friends with people, or to get to know someone. And people take that very, very liberally in Japanese university. So I enjoyed that a lot, because I had presumptions, right? Like yourself, I thought like, oh, okay, if you're drinking here, this is before I arrived. Like if you're drinking here, maybe, people are very polite. They're not going to go full on. No, that was not the case.
Yeah.
People went pretty full on, especially with the nomihoudai and everything.
Yeah, nomihoudai is like all you can drink. So like everywhere kind of has like its own like rules and stuff about it. Like some places it's just for an hour, some places it's 2 hours, 30 minutes, like stuff like that. But basically you pay like a set price, and for that set amount of time, you can just drink as much as you can, which seems like it should be illegal, but whatever. And usually like people will be pretty smart about it. Like if you go to like a izakaya, you can do like, I forgot the order, tabe nomihoudai. Like you can do like all you can eat and all you can drink together. So like at least you're not like just overwhelming your system with alcohol, you're kind of like watering it down a bit. Yeah, nomihoudai. Like just as it sounds, like that's like all you can drink in a set amount of time. I'm sure like a lot of people probably go out and they're like a little more responsible, and it just seems like a nice financial thing, like especially if you're going with like your company or you're going with your club or something like that. Like it seems the most like typically I think for USD at the time, it was anywhere from like $25 to $30 for like 2 hours like per person. And but you get like a bunch of like kids and freaking dumbass foreigners that go out and they're like, what is this like magic time? And it's just like those things could get a little sloppy.
Yeah, they built that system without thinking about how foreigners would react to it, because we went through a lot of nomihoudais and
We'll just
tabehoudais.
abuse everything.
Yeah, we just eat the whole restaurant or like drink all the barrels. It was pretty insane. Like we're talking about 2 hours, unlimited drinks at like a capped price. And I like what you said about it being the financial bit. I've actually asked a few Japanese students about why did they even have this shit, right? Like, it sounds like it's such a stupid idea because you can just go full on. And they said that it's just convenient because you don't want to bother the other people about, oh, I owe this much, you owe that much, we'll calculate off of it. So why not just everyone just pays the same price? Then you can drink as much as you want or as little as you want, and you don't have to think about it after. Because it's supposed to be in that moment there you enjoy it, and then you just pay this one price and it's actually enough. So there's that. It's just that sometimes you have people who want to make the most out of that time, and the people who want to make most out of that time tend to be not from that place, which is where we come in.
I like to think that I wasn't, I guess as like part of the group, I'm automatically like that bad. But when I go drinking, I do like to try to like be aware of how I'm affecting like my surroundings. But there were times where I would go out in like a big group and you can noticeably see that the staff is like, these bitches. Like they just want you to like get out. Like I think there was 1 or 2 times that I went out with a group that was being a little outlandish. But for the most part though, even then, especially my first semester, I think people were within like their limits. Because everybody that goes to izakaya is like, it's like the one place that you can go and be like loud, I guess, like to a certain degree. Like everyone at the izakaya in their groups is like just having a good time, having drinks with like their companies and things like that. So it's like a fun atmosphere. Like you really feel like you can like cut loose. But Japan's version of like cutting loose in public is a little different than a lot of other countries.
Yeah, when you're drinking at a bar and when you're drinking at an izakaya, the energy is different. And I can feel that. Like it's very obviously different. So like an izakaya would be a very informal gathering place that just happens to have conveniences for food and drink. Like that's how I look at it, because most of the time you don't really go to an izakaya to drink on your own or something like that. Like normally it's for the convenience factor. It's like cheap. There's like all kinds of grilled stuff to get, edamame, whatever. And then there's beer on tap, and then there's like other kinds of drinks. It fits as big of a group as you want, and sometimes it just just a couple of people, and the energy differs for various numbers within the group and various personalities, so that fits really, really well. Whereas for a bar, the theme or the setting sets the energy, because if it's like a very like a high class bar, it's like very quiet and you're not supposed to be rowdy, etc. But then it is it's just a battlefield. Everyone's just like rowdy, everyone's smoking, everyone's like crazy, you pay one price, right? It's just a ticket to drink yourself to death.
Mayhem.
Yeah.
Did you go to any like themed things, like themed bars, izakayas, when you were there?
Did I? No, actually. I don't think I
Just
did.
Hooters.
No, that's not even a themed. That's just tits in a restaurant. I mean, they have bar, like they do have a bar, and actually, I've actually drunk there a couple of times. With Jason, of course. Shout out to Jason.
Yeah, of course.
Shout out to Team Smash. Yeah. No, I don't think I've ever been to a themed bar or like a speak. Oh, actually, my favorite bar in Japan is themed. It's a movie themed bar where all the cocktails are named after movies. So all the bartenders are film buffs. So they love film, and they make these cocktails based off of elements within a movie. So when you tell them like,
I think I've been there with Charla. If we're thinking of the same place, is it in Shibuya?
It's in Shibuya, yeah.
It's got like whales in the name.
Yeah, Whales of August. Yeah, that's the name.
Yeah. That's you have to be able to speak Japanese to go there.
Yeah. That is that. Yeah, that's my favorite place. Like that's my favorite place to drink ever. Like I even did a podcast episode, like a narrative just on that place because I just love it so much. Like it
has such like a nice like dim artsy vibe in there.
Yeah. You can definitely enjoy going there alone because I've been there alone a couple of times and it's just fun. You get to talk with the bartenders as well. So like an example, if our listeners can just imagine it, a Titanic, if you ordered a cocktail at Titanic, it is a top heavy glass, wine glass, with a large ice rock in the middle, and then a blue Alizé, and that represents the iceberg that the Titanic crashed into. So like, it's inspirations like that. Or like an Austin Powers, which is just like a giant ass fruit cocktail with like pineapple and all that shit. It's pretty awesome. That's like the only themed place I've been to, but nowhere else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Charla, so if you like watched like YouTube video to like Charla in Japan, and this would be fucking like 2005, 2016. Sure, she made a video when we were there and like recorded some of the drinks that she got. And I remember she got like a Totoro one. And I'm pretty sure it came with like a Totoro like cookie or something. It was either that or like it was made out of whipped cream or something. But she has like a couple of drinks. So like if you're listening to this and you're like, what's this? You could probably find her video. And maybe I'll watch that after this. But you could find that and like check it out a bit. But that place was really cool.
Yeah, but normally a theme bar, I'd be going there for the experience and the ambience. Like if I want to go drink, I don't need that. I just want to drink. It'd probably just be to like just some really good izakayas here and there in Tokyo. One favorite one, I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's called like Sumire or something like that in Shibuya. Has really, really cheap beer and like chicken sticks or like yakitori. And you just be drinking in there all the time. And it's like quite a ways away from like the crowded areas. So not as many people. I mean, it does get busy, but that it's pretty much, it's very, very worth it. So, bring a couple of friends there and then we just drink and whatever. The thing is like, I have a feeling that drinking there or like just drinking in general in Tokyo has made me have, it made me more contemplative about why I go out to drink in the first place, because there's a lot of people who would just go to friends' houses to drink, right? You have a lot of like mansion, which is the the tiny apartments that a lot of people have there, and people would just visit and they'd have drinks and they just enjoy that company. But then you can do the same in the izakaya, and then you can do the same but in a more classier place in a bar, and then you can have a different experience at a theme bar. Throughout my time, like drinking, even before I came to Tokyo, I didn't really care about that at all. I was just like, oh, drinks. Or this is Sydney, so I was like, fucking goon. But I went to Tokyo, and all of a sudden, I just had so much greater self-respect because I wanted to drink different kinds of things. And
you want like more of an experience.
Yeah, Yeah, like I wanted to make it worth my time going out at night because I really, really enjoyed being out at night in general while I was there.
Yeah, me too.
So here's one thing. When you're gathering, have you been to other kinds of nomikais? Like just meetups
Like, what
with
do you
drinking
mean?
people? So we have
Like,
the university sakura nomikai. Have you been to other types of nomikai where like it's like people at work, or it's people of a certain event, or it's just another kind of gathering? Do you notice any like differences between there?
well, there's like a couple that I went to, like you said, like through the clubs. A lot of like the club ones I just would go with like with a friend. Like I wasn't in particularly like interested in like joining a club because I'm like shy, and I was like, I don't think my Japanese is good enough to like actually make friends and be comfortable in the experience. But I went to a couple like random ones with people, just like in the beginning you do all that orientation stuff and people want to like go out and kind of get, that's actually how I like really met Sid, because his group was like gonna go to an izakaya, and then my group seemed like they didn't really want anything to do with each other. And there were two of the Japanese students like in Sid's group that had just met me like at McKim and had like introduced themselves to me. And so they're like, "Oh, is your group going out?" And I said no. And they were like, "Well, come with us." And I was like, "Okay." And so I was at like, that one was like very calm and chill just because everyone is kind of like getting to know each other, I guess, and maybe like uncomfortable because there's like the Japanese students did like a really great job just like being super like engaging and stuff, but the rest of us like foreigners were kind of like, eh. And Sid was sitting across from me and he's just like staring at me. And finally he's like, because I'm not in their group, and so finally he's like, "Who invited you?" And I was like, and he's just like fucking like blatant like, "Sid, what, who invited you?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" Like, and I was like offended. And he was like, no, just like, "You're not in our group, so like why are you here?" And I was like,
what an asshole.
And he wasn't trying to be mean, like obviously, but it came off like that. And I was just like, oh, what a fucking dick. But I think that was like probably the most perfect start to like how me and Sid's like friendship like developed over like the past year, because that's just like how we would, and that's like still how we talk to each other. That was very calm. Like a lot of those like icebreaker type like nomikais were very kind of calm. I went to a couple like business ones, like the students in like the business things. One of them was pretty like exciting. There was like a bunch, like I think like all the students went, so there was like a bunch of different tables. And so after people were like drinking, people were just kind of like hopping around and doing whatever. One of them was super awkward and like, I don't know, just really like boring. Everyone kind of just like drank silently. When you go out with like your friends to like a nomihoudai or something, I went to quite a few with people that I had made friends with in the States. So the Japanese students that had come to my university, like the year before I came to Japan, we would meet up a lot, and those were always pretty wild. Or like karaoke, like nomihoudai can be like an experience.
I forgot
Like,
that was a thing.
yeah, I feel like in those times, for whatever reason, people just unlock a whole new side of themselves in the karaoke room once their drinks hit.
I forgot because you can rent a room, and then
Yeah.
on top of that you can be like, "Oh, yeah, you have this room for like 2 hours, 3 hours. Do you want to have unlimited drinks?" Like, first of all, like it's already crazy enough you can even get drinks at a karaoke room. I mean, there's a lot of places around the world that has that, but like the fact that you can get unlimited, Like
Yeah.
a lot of like jugs of beer brought in. Oh,
Just at one time, yeah.
I have one. Oh, I have one story about that. We have so I but by the time our semester came about, I was at J5. So the J5 group, which is basically the people who have intermediate Japanese or like expert level Japanese, we were also our own in group. So I would hang out with them sometimes. But I mean, they're not as crazy as like people know Sakadai. Shout outs to Sakadai. But the J5 group, they like, we really enjoyed each other's company. So there was a lot of us like hanging out together and studying together, etc. So that was pretty fun. We had this like final dinner thing, or this like farewell party kind of situation, where we be at a restaurant and then we ate and then we drank a little bit and then we went karaoke. So it was a little bit awkward because they all knew that I was kind of a crazy party person, because at the time I had like a different colored hair color and I was really trying to be like moteru. I was trying to be fashionable, whatever, talking to everybody, and I was just drinking a lot and dancing. So I was pretty out there, pretty extroverted, I should say. But they were not. So when I was there, I don't really show that side of me to them, because with them I'm more calmer and I really want to study and I really respect them for being amazing at Japanese. So when we were drinking, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, let's drink. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And everybody went with like a very light drink, like a wine or a beer or something. And I was like, you know what I feel like? A hot sake, right? Let's go with a hot sake. And that's always the start. That pattern of thinking is always the start to like regret. Because I would get like a tokuri, or like a small sake bottle, and it's in hot water. So you have just hot sake. And for everyone who doesn't know, sake absorbs a lot faster when it's hot. So I would drink it. I'd be like, wow, I'm really enjoying everyone's company. But it turns out that that was some extra strong sake, and I didn't really remember much of it. So by the time I finished the whole thing, I was like, whoa, what happened? And then my eyes flashed before me and I can't remember like half the night. And it turns out that they all still wanted to go out crazy. So they wanted to go get karaoke. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And and we went to karaoke, and it was just like 8 to 10 of us in like one room, cramped in one room. And we were like singing for 2-3 hours. But then I was like, yeah, let's do it again, nomihoudai. And I was already drunk and I ordered nomihoudai and I was getting even more. Oh God, I had to vomit out on the side. Oh shit, that was pretty bad. So like, it was funny. It was like, what's funny is that there's a picture of me. There's a picture of me on Facebook of me singing, and I can, if you just see my eyes, I look like I just went through like a marathon overnight. Like, it's the face I make when I'm done clubbing. Like, it's just like, and you don't want to see your own face when you're done with clubbing. You're so tired and exhausted, but you're still drunk and whatever. But that was a pretty funny night. I guess a lot of people there, if you can stick a nomihoudai into an event, they will stick a nomihoudai into an event.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard, like, because again, I feel like when I drink in America, I'm usually like pretty careful. I want to like keep my wits about me, and I'm like, depending on like what I've eaten today, how I'm feeling, blah blah blah, I'm like usually staying within like a certain limit of drinks. Like I know myself. But in Japan, the atmosphere is so different, like when you go out with people, that you just don't even think about it, and suddenly it's like you said, you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, what did I do? Like, what have I like? And this sounds like so bad, but like I don't know how I did not die like in Japan. I remember one night going out, and I think we just went out to like clubs and stuff like that. And my ass fucking getting out of the train to like go back home like fell. like in like between like the door and the platform.
Oh shit.
And I just like dipped down in there and I was like, oh, fuck. And everyone's like, oh shit, Holly. And then like it drugged me out. And then I was just like, okay, yeah, let's go home. But I woke up like the next day, like my legs just like totally like fucked up, like all bruised. And I didn't like remember what happened. And I was like, fuck, what did I do? And I like came down into like the lobby and I was like, Sid, what did I do? And he was like, bitch, like you fucking fell in between the train and the platform. And I was like, I can fit in there? Because when you're looking at it, it doesn't look that big. And I was like, what? Like I fell. And he's like, yeah, like you were gonna die. And I was like, no, it's fine. But then I remembered this one girl, because I also feel there was for me a bit of a difference between the people I was drinking with first semester and second semester. And I feel like first semester with like all of us, we would get, you know, like crazy, but it wasn't like a mess, you know, like, well, it wasn't like scary. It wasn't like questionable. It wasn't like so-and-so like could have died last night. But the second semester people, like they like drank to be fucked up. And it was like a different, like there was this one person, and like only in Japan could this happen, like I swear to God, but she ended up like disappearing like from the night, like we were all coming home like from the club, and Sid and I were like the people that semester that carried over from our first semester, so we wanted to like look after everyone. And in first semester, we would always try to make sure, you know, everyone was rounded up so we could all go home together. And the second semester wasn't as much like that. People kind of just like did their thing. But Sid and I would try to make sure like all of us were accounted for. But I think one of the first times, like first few times out, this one person like disappeared. And we were like, oh shit, where are they? And then like later on, hours have gone by. She's like texting the group like, oh, yeah, I got lost. And she went to like some like gyudon place, like a beef bowl place to like sober up. And just like some random dude was like noticed how messed up she was and like took her home. And but he like nothing bad happened, like it was fine. She like woke up in the morning and she like told us what happened, and like she was safe and fine, and he like gave her blankets and like took care of her and things. And I was just like, because in America, absolutely not would this like, if this happened, like count your fucking blessings. Because
yeah.
And I remember for just the rest of the semester being like really freaked out by that story, like, oh my God, like no. Because when you're out drinking like in Japan, the atmosphere, I don't know, I just it like time warps you. You're not even thinking, you're just having a good time, like having drinks with friends, and then suddenly you're way past like what you should have been doing.
I did have a scare story about that though, now that I think about it. In first semester, we have one person, whoever from semester one and in the Sakurai listening to this, we know exactly who I'm talking about, but let's just say she was working a part-time job, and then she joined us when the whole group was in Roppongi clubbing. So she had a job, and then like she was done, and then I think she had a few shots at her job. It was a restaurant, and then after that she joined us. And then she joined us, and then she's a pretty, you know, fun party person, so that's perfectly fine. But then I didn't see her for the rest of the night. I was like, what happened? And then two of the guys actually, no, two people from the group actually left the club, but we didn't know. And it was only until like when we came back, because sometimes like we like for us at the time, this was my first semester, so I wasn't really the one being like accountable for who's like present or whatever it is, but we all went back, and then it was all fun and games. But then the next day, most of the time we would be like hanging out with each other, checking out everyone's okay, and then we couldn't find this girl, and it turns out she went to the hospital. So
oh my God.
Yeah, so it turns out that she drank something that was creating this like violent reaction in her, and she just couldn't stop vomiting. So they had to call the ambulance. And one of the guys that was with us, the Japanese student, called help with like actually got in the ambulance with her to take care of her to see if she's okay. And she had to be hospitalized, and then they had to give her an IV drip, and she had to stay overnight. And he was like, they're translating for everything. And then after that, he went back home. And so we were like, dude, what happened? Like, what crazy? And he told us the story. And, the next day she came back, got a taxi from the hospital and came back to the dorm, and she was perfectly fine. And we're like, what happened? What the hell happened to you? And she told us the story, but then she just looked perfectly okay. Like, she's like, the IV drip really, really helped me. And I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. So it makes me wonder, yes, there you can feel pretty much very, very safe while drinking in Japan, but things like this can actually happen. But you have people who can actually take care of you. So like, it's good to be there as a group. Like, I feel a lot, like normally, I mean, this is common sense. You'd feel a lot safer if you're drinking in a group, but in Japan, you feel way safer when you are in a group and at least one person speaks Japanese. Like, there's a lot more responsibility when you have someone who can actually act as translator. Like, that's a big deal, huge advantage.
Yeah, I feel like typically, like in Tokyo, you don't usually like need it, but situations do, or like alcohol related. Like, there was a time where I had to go like to the hospital, and I wouldn't have Yui. She like went with me and took care of me and helped me like talk with people, and absolutely made the experience like 1,000 times easier than it would have been. But yeah, for the most part in Tokyo, like, you can get away like with English, but in those like special circumstances, because shit happens, like, and especially if you're out like being wild and stuff, like you never really know. Japan is prided on being, really safe, but obviously there are those chances, like something bad can happen.
It's interesting because we're looking at this as people who have not lived there, and then we're put into that spot where we see the tranquility of the day, and then this like the yabainess of the night, and as much as the safety from during the day carries over to night, we still have to fend for ourselves to a certain degree. And when you need to get access to those like emergency things, like these safety nets that like this place provides, you're still going to need to know the language. Like, it's scary when and I have a few friends who tell me this, like, they would hang around a lot near me because they know I speak Japanese. So like, they'd be like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Can you help me buy this thing? Or can you buy me that? And at first it's like, oh, buy the food or whatever it is. And sometimes it's something that's a little bit more contractual, right? Like something that requires like for like registering for a phone SIM card or something like that. Like, that's, you need to read the fine print. Like, what the hell? Or like, medical.
Know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, what's the Japanese word for asthma? Or like, what about these drugs, like this medicine that I need? Can you get it over the pharmacy? I'm like, bitch, I don't know the fucking kanji for pills. Like, what the hell? Like,
right.
It's interesting because the drinking culture in Japan is very accepting for everybody.
Yeah.
But the safety precautions that actually allow you to have so much fun there are not as accessible. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just that you do have to be way more mindful of how much help can you actually get, because it's limited by your language ability. In any other part of the world, in Australia, I mean, everybody speaks English, so it's okay. Although if you're not Australian, then you're fucked because you have to pay for everything full price. And in Malaysia, you do get some level of coverage. But I don't know about you, although I think you've already mentioned this before, maybe. I don't feel that safe drinking to that level in Malaysia. I like to do like social drinking, just like, a cocktail or two, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like I do that and then I leave and I go back home. Because anything past midnight, and my instincts would tell me I need to go home.
Yeah.
But that doesn't ring the bell for me in Japan.
Yeah, same. Like, even in Japan, I feel the most like danger that I've felt was from other foreigners. Very rarely in general, just out and about, did I feel like particularly like threatened in like within Japanese society, which is kind of sad. Like, I want to note as I say that, like, it's unfortunate because I feel like foreigners in Japan get like a pretty bad rep. Like, it's people who go over there to live and have their life, or even born there and are technically like of Japanese society, but they look foreign. Like, I know that it's quite they face a lot of like discriminations.
Yeah.
But so I do want to note like the awareness of that, but it is unfortunate because when I was there, typically the only times that I have had problems in Japan where I felt particularly like, oh shit, like things could happen, was because of like other foreigners that were in the area.
We are protected by our own kind to a certain degree.
Yeah,
but it's like a double-edged sword. It's crazy. It becomes more apparent when you try to further go into that, like Japanese culture of socializing as a foreigner. Like like alcohol, it's just a really, really good example or a really, really good excuse to socialize.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere around the world, but particularly in Japan. And I've heard a number of stories from people who have worked there, and they look at nomikais or like work nomikais, and they fall into two different categories. One is that I don't want to go because it's mandatory. And two is I need to go because it's work. It's always one of those two. It's normally like the word nomikai is then weaponized within the corporate world there, because it's used as a way to formalize socializing within the company, because you want to keep it for a long term. And for some reason, trying to make that very robotic and very unnatural because you're forcing that to happen, like not like writing it as like a process, but more like heavily encouraging that you need to go to this bar with us, your seniors, because you need to as an employee. It's too much for some people. Like I have an ex-girlfriend who started working at the time, and she would complain a lot about these nomikais. And I would ask her like, oh, why don't you just not go? Right. And she couldn't really give me a good reason as to why she must go. It was pretty weird. There was some like miscommunication there. So like at the time she would be speaking in Japanese, I'd be speaking in English. When I was trying to tell her like, oh, why don't you go? Why just not go? And she couldn't find the words in English. I asked her to explain in Japanese, and then when she did, I didn't really understand the translation, because it felt like when you are in a company there, the nomikai is another meeting. It's like a meeting on Zoom. It's like you see your calendar, it's like, oh, it's another Zoom meeting. And you elicit the same feelings. It's like, oh no, it's another Zoom call. Oh God, I'm so tired of this shit. But now it's just, now there's just alcohol in your hand when you're talking to your employees. It's just, kills me.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend who, first off, if you can hear the like lawnmower going in the background, I'm so sorry. But but yeah, I had a friend who went into like Japanese companies and stuff, and the drinking was like a huge part of his like experience. and he absolutely hated it because he would say for him it was like sometimes they would be out even past like last train, and this would happen like in the middle of the week and everything. And so he'd be talking about like you just have to go like sleep in like a karaoke room or something, and then like go to work the next day, just like all sorts of like messed up. And it was surprising because you don't often hear about like drug use and stuff like that in Japan because it's very, very strict. But he was telling me like quite a few people would like get their hands on the coke and stuff just so they could like make it through like the workday after being, you know, forced to go out and drink with the company and like colleagues and stuff, which I thought was wild. I was like, oh wow. Like no wonder like no wonder the salarymen, you know, get so like depressed. Like drinking alcohol like that already can take such a toll on your system. And then when it's like added as like a necessity on top, like it's just a work, you know. So
it's part of work. Like, what the hell? Like,
yeah,
you
right.
have to take drugs just to survive. Like, what the heck? It's crazy. There's this it's something that has been plaguing me a lot about that, like about why that is acceptable in corporate culture. Like, to continue on from the ex-girlfriend thing, we broke up because we were talking to each other less and less because she was focusing on work way more. Yeah. So that was like one of the signs, like the fact that she felt that she needed to go to nomikais and much more, and then less and less communications over time. And then, you know, it ended up becoming like a message. And then she would reply 3 weeks later. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's like, I feel like this is a really interesting lens, just nomikais, like mandatory nomikais. It's a pretty interesting lens into social norms that are seen as rules or mandates.
Yeah.
In other countries, like in Australia at least, people are pretty lax, pretty informal. As soon as you step in the bar, you're like, I want to get fucking drinks, right? Like, you're just like, yeah, you know, right. There's that mode, right? It's like, okay, if you're in the office, you're in the office, but in your bar, you're in the fucking bar, right? Like, everybody knows, like, you're there just to, you know, down a pint. In Malaysia, it's pretty much the same, right? Like, we know the borders between work life and relaxing life and like living the life. Yeah. And there's just a lot of traffic in between. So it's a lot easier to transition to that mode of like, fuck, I just want to drink, right?
Right.
In Japan, the convenience factor of everything, and I think that we touched on this a lot from last episode, the convenience factor of everything, from going to work, from getting all this food to getting all these things just at hand, even getting alcohol from an electronics store, to like izakaya and nomikais, because it's so convenient to go to from work to bar, the companies also know that. So because of the need or like the effectiveness of company performance, whereby socializing with people and becoming more friendly with each other can result in greater performance, because that is like held up high, they're like, oh, you now must go nomikai. We will not explicitly say you must go, but we'll be like, you know,
yeah,
you're gonna miss out on a lot, right? You're gonna miss out on a lot.
They say you don't have to go, but like, you know, you're gonna be shamed like if you don't. Like, there's no winning in this situation.
And the greatest anti-example of that is reaching out to another friend of mine about work, and we were talking about nomikais, and she would say like, you know, it's fine if you look like you've just fucked up and drank a ton the night before, and then you arrive at work the next day, because it looks like you stayed overnight working, or it looks like you stayed overnight socializing with company employees, or you're doing something, right? It looks like you're working. Like, in what other part of the world finds it acceptable that I would look like I just came back from from Feria drinking 6 tequila shots and then arriving at work the next day and being like, my boss being like, good job, man. Good job.
Yeah, right. You're working hard. Yeah.
Oh, God. No wonder people need Coke.
Right? God. I couldn't. I would burn out so fast. Like, even after first semester, like second semester, I didn't like go out as much as I did because like it just gets like tiring, like when that's all that you do, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and even then it's like if I would go out and I would just be like, oh, I just like won't drink, like you feel awkward because you're in that atmosphere and everyone like it's kind of like expected that you like have a drink with everyone and like get drunk with everyone. So you're just kind of like chilling there, like drinking a water or something. And you feel, at least for me, it's like I would feel like kind of out of place. Like, oh, I'm not like fitting the mood sort of thing. But yeah, I can't imagine, like if it was part of my job, I would die out so fast. I'd just get fired.
That's the thing. We shouldn't be feeling that way though. That's the thing.
No,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Since when was it that like like individually deciding that you won't drink while you're at the bar is now said with like a voice of regret. That's the scary part, right? Like hearing you explaining it makes it a lot clearer now. Like, why do I have to feel bad about not drinking at the bar with people here? Especially in a very collectivistic environment, it's further highlighted by everybody when it's like, oh, what, this one person isn't drinking, what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it is weird how your like mind can sort of like change in that way, because I know like when I would be in America, I wouldn't even think twice, like if I wasn't drinking or something, like I wouldn't care, like I'm my own person. But then suddenly, like after you've like sort of figured out how Japan works and stuff like that, no matter how much of my like individualism as I tried to like maintain, I was still like uncomfortably aware that like I should be putting an effort to be like part of the group because that's like what's normal. It's a very like awkward sort of like thing to navigate. Which maybe in another way is why like drinking is like such a big deal, because it kind of takes off that like that stress almost, where it's like if you're drinking and getting drunk, you know, you're more like relaxed and apt to kind of just like blend in and go along like with your atmosphere. But man,
you also get to see another side of people who harbored similar frustrations if the conditions are right, especially in a nomikai. When I was part of the dance circle in uni, we'd have a few nomikais, and like during the day when we're practicing, a lot of people are shy. Like there's a lot of people who are just very quiet, they keep to themselves, and then they're trying to find themselves through dance or whatever it is, or trying to find a place to belong, like what we said earlier. But in nomikais, like it's a big group and everyone's like talking and drinking whatever, and some people are just way louder and way more out there and outgoing because they need the alcohol to give themselves permission to become like that, because that is not how they are perceived throughout the day. So it feels like in that sense, alcohol is a very good default to fall back to for everyone, because now it's your excuse to be like, hey, I'm actually very different inside. Let me show you by drinking a beer. It's much more apparent that way in like very collective groups. So like I would, like in second semester, so your first semester, this is when I was like the only foreigner in my crew. And they would know that I'm very extroverted and loud, etc. But I remember being visibly clear that I was not as loud and about in second semester, just because I didn't have like the other guys with me. So I would observe a lot, like just these nomikais, and there's like what 80, 100 people or something like that drinking. You know, first years, second years, third years, all Japanese, and I'd just be like, you know, drinking, just like walking around, be like, hello, hello, hello. The third years, they're so comfortable in their own skin, they're perfectly fine. The first and second years, not so much. So you observe the same few people 30 minutes in, 1 hour in, and they want to be more comfortable, or they want to fit in more, so they drink more, and the next thing you know, they're very, very different from who they are, and it's like at that point you're so numb from the alcohol that you don't know if what you're doing right now is right or wrong, or if you're belonging or not. Like it's like very, very blurry. It's really interesting to see that behavior, and it's even more so when that is a huge contrast from what you're meant to see throughout the day when you're like, you know, doing activities with them. It's so cool.
Yeah, that was like a realization that I had actually like recently, as I've been like exploring like I actually want to make a video about this for my own thing, but like with like autism and stuff, and how you were saying like, because I'm also like a very like quiet person, and so throughout my experiences with alcohol, I'm always like, yeah, like, because I used to be like, I always have like the most fun when I'm drinking. Like, I feel like I can be like more myself, like in an environment where everyone's drinking. And it's because people typically like, they're not judging you as hard because everyone's like drinking and being like a little weird. But it is different when you're like aware of that. Like, I feel that can bring a very like isolated sort of feeling into like a drinking party experience. At least like I would get that way sometimes in Japan, where I would be like, am I drinking right now because I actually want to be, or am I just drinking because like this is what like everyone's doing, and like I want to be able to socialize with people, so by default like I'm going to drink. And then like when you're like drunk and you start being like this like self-aware, like those are typically times where I was just like, and you get like, for me at least, like I would get sad and I'm just like, oh, what am I doing? And then have to like go off and like isolate myself and like ponder my existence and my decisions.
Yes, that spiral. Been there many, many times. Oh God. It is quite a detour from my usual drunk self. You know this about me already. I'm quite a happy drunk. The most obvious sign that I'm drunk is that the way I laugh changes. So for anyone there who's drunk with me before, they know that I laugh a certain way when I'm like normal. I mean, it's just a pretty normal laugh. But then when I laugh when I'm drunk, it's pretty high pitched. It's like, and it's quite scary. I even I even surprise myself sometimes when I'm like that. I'm like, oh no, oh no, I am drunk. Oh no, the alcohol is in my veins. Oh no, I hit my voice box. I'm fucked. So it's interesting because it's my drunk happy self is out and about, enjoying the air or the atmosphere around, you know, in a place like an izakaya, which is heavily encouraged, right? Everybody else is just as happy or as rowdy, and it's not even us. It's like, you know, the table nearby or the other table nearby, and sometimes it's like, you know, Japanese people hearing us speak English and they're like, hey, ちょっと英語話してる. And then we're like, hey, you know, because we're so drunk, we bring everybody in. It's funny, but my thoughts would detour sometimes. Maybe it's just from drinking so much after 2 semesters of it that you'd be like, oh, this is just the same thing that I've been doing for like 10 months already. Why am I hurting my body this way?
Yeah.
And that can lead to another negative thought. And I've been trying to hold myself
then
back
you just go down. Yeah.
Because sometimes you feel more comfortable being in that despair than it is from like trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
And then your only solution is another drink, because nomihoudai is so cheap and easy to do. Oh God.
Sad drink in the corner. Hope nobody notices.
You know that what that tweet template? It's like, men will literally go to nomihoudai than go to therapy. Like it's just
yeah. It's cheaper.
Yeah. The bar is my church, as said by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. Yeah, shout out to Macklemore. If you're listening to this, I like that song. Neon Cathedral. Yeah, there we go. I even did a choreo for it. That's pretty awesome. So yeah. I pretty much don't have anything else to say about it. Like when you talk about drinking culture in Japan, we have that dark side to it. Like there's the convenient hedonistic element where everyone can really truly be themselves, but then sometimes that becomes expected. So that can hurt the psyche a little bit more. And sometimes you don't even know that pain until you've done it for so long. And you're like, oh, I have to do this for work, or, oh, I must drink if I'm in this environment. It may be too much. Like,
I think can definitely bring about some depression.
Yeah, it's too much. How do you do you have a way to like protect yourself from such thoughts, like from all these times like drinking and catching yourself having them?
No. Like there are sometimes, like if I'm with like a group that I'm very comfortable with everybody, typically it's easier to like bounce back in those times because you can like see the people and you're like, oh, they love me like no matter what like I'm feeling or thinking. I don't have to worry about like if I do something stupid while I'm drunk, like are they gonna judge me later? It's a lot easier to take like the pressure off. If I'm like out even in like a mixed group and there's some people that I'm just not so sure of, or like in public or something, and I start worrying too much about myself and like how I am coming off, then usually I have to just like leave the situation. Like it becomes a little too much for me. And for me, with all the stuff that I have going on in my head, when I start going down those like roads of thoughts, I also start becoming very easily like overstimulated, like sensory wise. So if I'm like at a bar, at a club, all the noises happening around me become way too much. Like the music, little glass clinks, like people talking, like everything overwhelms me. So not only am I getting like depressed, I'm also starting to like panic in a situation where I feel like I need to get out of. And I don't know, I never really learned how to calm that down. If that started happening like in Japan or even like in the States, then typically I take that as a sign as I need to take care of myself a little bit. I need to like take a break from like drinking or going out and just, you know, focus on myself and like isolate a little bit to recharge. However, when it comes to situations like if going out to like nomikai and stuff is like part of your freaking job, then it's like how can you do that? Like you really don't get permission to take care of yourself, which is awful.
Getting permission to take care of yourself, it's like the never-ending question, because that question is very contextualized. Like asking yourself that question at 15, the answer will be very different from asking yourself that same question at 25 or even at 30 or whenever else it will be. In the case of Japan, I feel like sometimes you will never ever get that permission unless you have a shred of individuality to like protect yourself by not going to these kinds of events, or do it in moderation, right? Or like, you know, not over drinking or not succumbing to expectations at the cost of your health. Even if it's the small things, right? Even if it's just like, oh, you know, one less beer, that's the start,
right?
Like, or you know, just half a glass, or even just not go clubbing twice a week, which is something I totally did, and I shouldn't be doing that, but I totally did.
Yeah.
It's asking permission for yourself. It's like a skill that the culture that you're in should be teaching you, and it should be teaching you very, very well. But I don't think it should ever be a blanket thing to teach. Like it should never be something that like, oh, this is the absolute way to do it. And I think that's why that's why we look at this like from a very critical point of view. Like I like drinking culture in Japan, but I know it's not the best thing ever. Like,
absolutely not. No.
If I join a company there and they're expecting me to drink, like I must drink. Like, damn, there's gonna be some days where I just don't want to drink. Like, no, fuck off. Like, I don't want to.
Right. And you should be able to say that. Like, you should be like within your rights to be able to be like, no, like, I'm gonna go down a like society and capitalism, like fever rant.
I feel like we always do. I feel like the pattern so far has always been like by 1 hour 30 we'd be zooming out on like goddamn capitalism,
society,
governments, and all that shit, politics, conspiracies, and all that. But to have it on a lighter note, I have to say that my best or my favorite drinking experience, not like with friends or anything, because that's kind of unfair, because it's like anywhere can be a great place to be if you have friends with there. Okay, but like my favorite drinking experience has to be one at that bar Whales of August, but two in Hokkaido, actually, because they have the best tap beer I've ever had in my life, like hands down. It's like cold, easy to drink, fresh. And when you go in winter and you drink the beer, it's like, oh my God, you just want to drink more. It's just this ice cold beer during winter. You just want to drink more. And even the izakayas there, yes, they're rowdy, but they're a little bit more quieter, right? They're smaller size. So you don't have to fall under the frantic pace of Tokyo metropolitan life. It is just like this winter getaway place, but still the same amenities that you would get from a Japanese city. So I have to say the beer there is like 12 out of 10. Like anyone who
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's like anyone who wants to go drinking in Japan, highly recommend drinking in Hokkaido. But,
yeah, I feel like all the premium shit comes from Hokkaido. Like Hokkaido cows, Hokkaido fish, Hokkaido corn. Like I remember seeing those advertisements just like everywhere you go. Hokkaido, it's like the land of the rising sun. That's just Hokkaido, not all of Japan.
It's just
Hokkaido.
To be fair, Okinawa is just like, it's just sun all the time. So it's not even rising. It's just summer anyway. So yeah, I think it makes sense if it's Hokkaido.
US bases. All the people that I would meet in, can I say that? Should I say that? I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should go down that road.
I don't know. If you think it's bad,
fuck it. You know what? Fuck it. Whatever. But like, I was just gonna say that like, anytime I met like military people visiting like Tokyo from Okinawa, they were always like the fucking shittiest people I've ever met in my whole life. Like, absolute. And I was like, we're really sending these people to like live and represent the like United States and like other countries. Like this is what it is. That's a whole different conversation we don't need to get into, but I said it. I'm sorry.
I've met a couple of guys, a couple of Marines actually. Were you there? Actually, it was during Halloween. It's two Marine guys.
Yeah, I remember exactly who brought them.
I don't know who brought them, but I remember they were just there in line, and then I started talking with them, And then we started talking about anime, and I was like, oh, these guys are pretty cool. And then after that, we just, partied, whatever, all through the night. That was my only interaction. Like, I never met anyone else from military back when I was in Tokyo. But then again, I tried my best to not mingle with foreign students or foreign people other than people in Sakadai or like people in Rikyo at least, just because I wanted to be like, I was way more serious about studying Japanese in second semester. So it was very rare for me to meet people that are like not in that context.
That's fun that you had like a pleasant experience with them, because my experience with them was we were in line and they were like shaming Saba for not being black enough. Like she didn't act black enough. And then I was just like so pissed off. And I was like, the fuck do you even mean by that? And then they got like, what's the word? Like hesitant and stuff. And they were like, oh shit. Oh fuck. And I was like, because you know me, like I'm an asshole. And so I was like, the fuck, back the fuck off my friend. And
okay, I might have missed that then. Maybe I didn't hear that part. But I'm not sure if I ever want to do an episode on military base. I don't know enough about that. Probably not.
I gotta live here, so.
But yeah, that's thinking about all this, like about the thing about Hokkaido and everything. I'm seeing that even all the way here. Like I went to this premium grocery store in KL in Malaysia, and they're selling Hokkaido vegetables. I'm like, how the fuck did you send vegetables from Hokkaido? And it turns out that they've sent their farmers from Hokkaido to like this elevated farming area in Malaysia, and they brought all their like farming tech, like their agricultural Japanese technology. And
oh my god,
they made this like fresh vegetables that are like Hokkaido quality. And I thought it was bullshit because like I was like, maybe it's just GMO or whatever. So I bought it.
Yeah,
it's pretty fucking good. Like it's fucking good. Like it's like Chitose farm something, and then it's like Hokkaido quality or something like that. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, the produce from Japan is like next level fucking shit.
Yeah. How is everything there so fresh? Like remember when like when you want to get like a sashimi bowl or something like that, and it turns out that you don't eat the local sashimi because local sashimi is more expensive than imported sashimi. That's how high quality Hokkaido sashimi is. Like, what the hell? Like, that's insane. Also, it goes very well with alcohol. Yeah.
I remember going to that like fish market in Otaru and having like a bowl there, and it was the fucking like most amazing thing. I just like melt in your mouth, the seafood. And that's when I knew I fucked up, because I was gonna go, like I was gonna do my exchange in Otaru, but then I was like, oh yeah, I'll go to Tokyo. But then I was like, it could have just been like eating premium up here for the whole year.
Oh, an exchange in Hokkaido would be amazing. Actually, I thought about it. I actually thought about it. Like that was one of my choices. But yeah, very cute. I'm not complaining. I mean, Hokkaido was just a train ride away, a really, really long train ride away, but still a train ride away. And when you go from region to region, you'll take your drinking habits with you, and sometimes you'll have different regional experiences. Like, in Okinawa, I drank Viper sake, or like habu sake, which is basically a jar with a viper's corpse and sake in it, and it just ferments and like it just adds flavor. So I went there. It's crazy ass drink, but I went to Okinawa in the summer with my friend, and the both of us were like just camping around or whatever, and we were on the main island, and we went to this famous restaurant and we ate there, and we got this viper sake. It was pretty funny because we were at the bar counter area, and it was just the two of us, and we ordered the viper sake, and the couple next to us also ordered viper sake, and it was also their first time. It was a Japanese couple. So me and Josh, shout out to Josh from Team Smash. So me and Josh were like, oh, okay, let's try this Viper sake. And we saw the jar that he poured it out from. And then the lady also took the jar and then poured it out to the other person's cup. So he saw us also take the same sake. And so it was me, Josh, and then this guy, and then his girlfriend or wife or whoever it is. And then we're like, oh, sake? It's like, oh, sake. Oh, okay. Kanpai. And then the lady didn't drink, but like the three of us were like, oh, sake, oh. And we were like hyping each other up because, boys will be boys no matter what the language will be. But we're like hyping each other up to try to drink this thing. And we're like, yeah, let's go. And we drank it. It was pretty fucking strong. So we were like clearing our throats, like, and the guy had it worse because he had a taller glass. So he was like, but gotta say, pretty good. Like you get pretty creative no matter which region. And for some reason, it was a good idea a long time ago to kill a snake, put it in a jar, add water, and then drink the water.
Yeah, I don't think I bought this. I think someone just left it in my room. But I had one of those, like, bottles of alcohol with the fucking scorpion in it. And I was like, it just ended up in my room somehow. Like, hardly drank. And then I think I would use that as like if we were playing drinking games or whatever, that would be like the punishment for people. I'd be like, you got to take like a shot of the scorpion vodka. And I never, like the whole time it was in my room, I never tried it. I was just casually like passing it off to people over time as like a Batsu game.
Yeah, we have Batsu game drinks as well. I don't know if you ever bought alcohol from Don Quixote before.
Probably.
But they have these like cheap knockoff whiskey bottles. And when I went to Japan in 2013, we were playing Drunk Monopoly, which is a very stupid game to do. We were playing Drunk Monopoly, and we bought this pretty much like pretty shitty labeled whiskey bottle called Golden Horse. And it was just a picture of a horse, and it was golden, and it's just Golden Horse. And it said whiskey, 40%. And we're like, okay, the color looks okay. We'll just buy it. And it was pretty cheap, right? I think it wasn't 900 yen. No way. Why am I remembering 900 yen? Maybe it's like 1,500 or something like that. We couldn't finish the bottle because it was so fucking bad that by like shot 5, we were like, no, we can't play this. Like we actually had to take off rules from Monopoly because we were getting hit too many times. Like, you can't just like take a shot for every time you have to pay tax or like get a building or like pay rent or whatever.
Right.
So we were drinking until like 3-4 a.m. and then it was a little bit of it left, and oh god, all of us were puked it out. Reminder, if a bottle that you buy in Japan has an English name, be careful if it's a knockoff or not.
Yeah,
because sometimes they just put English names just to make it sound cool, but
sounds sexy. Yeah,
pretty shit. Oh god. Ugh. I'm traumatized by Golden Horses. So
it doesn't even sound like something you should be drinking.
Yeah, no, it sounds like some piss shit. Like,
right.
Some kind of kink. If you are if the owner of the brewery for Golden Horse is listening to this episode, I would love to talk to you and ask you why the fuck did you make that, because it was disgusting as shit. Like, god. With that being said, that's pretty much it for me. Is there anything about Japanese drinking culture that, off the top of your head, that you want to like bring out?
Shit's lit. No, but like, but no, like we discussed, there's pros and cons to it. Like, it can absolutely be like a lot of fun, but as with everything, there's like a bigger picture to like be aware of. I feel it's easy to talk about as like a foreigner. We got to like leave the situation. We got to go and experience it and more or less like more fun than negative.
Yeah.
But I feel like you also have to be careful, like glamorizing that sort of thing for like everyone, because for people that actually live there and that's like their culture, like it isn't necessarily like this great, amazing thing.
Yeah, it was great for us because it was a fleeting experience. Like we're going to go. Like it's not going to be this mandate or this rule. So, you know, as much as we're sharing our experiences here, and we can put it on a pedestal about all the fun times. Like I at least want to say here that, or state here rather, that we do recognize the deeper implications of why that culture exists in the first place. And it's not always the best thing for many people living there permanently. So you can see why a lot of people will be leaving Japan, etc., or why they don't want to be in there. Like maybe they want to have more of the good and less of the bad. Like it's not like people didn't want to drink, you know, it's just they want to have the freedom to drink rather.
Yeah, you don't want to be like it shouldn't be an expectation for you to drink. Like it absolutely should not be like expected of you to like keep your job or put up a good face for people. Like that's awful.
Yeah. So that's, you know, our 2 cents on that. And with that being said, we have arrived at the end of this episode. So with that being said, you have been listening to the amazing yabai crazy ass hosts, Norman and
Holly.
So with that being said, I hope you have been enjoying this time when we're talking about all things Kanpai in the Kanpai Chronicles, all things drinking, and drink responsibly. Please do not get, please don't get hospitalized and having to get an IV in. If you're, you know who you are. If you're listening to this, please don't do it ever again. So I'll send this to you later. But you know, with that being said, as per usual, you know, tweet at us. We'll definitely put links to both of our Twitter accounts in the show notes to this episode down below. And you can, you know, give us a feedback or like reply or even suggest on what else to talk about. And maybe if there's some other stories that you'd like us to explore on or actually talk about later on, maybe we can bring it up in the next episode. So with that being said, Holly, is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, you're good. You're good. You're hitting all the points.
All right. With that, I just want to be like I said so much of it. So with that being said, we are signing off now. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.